information and good observations on the situation at hand, and now we want to get your questions on that. So I ask you to please raise your hand. If you have a question, we'll have a microphone come to you, and then just when you get the microphone, if you'll state your name and affiliation, we will go from there. First question. Gentleman here in the front. Here's the microphone.
Ken Meyercourt, World Docs. Do we owe anything to impoverished third world countries not to lure their best and their brightest through increasing the H-1B visa cap, as Heritage suggests, or as former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour suggests, handing out green cards at graduation ceremonies?
Thank you.
Yeah, can I address that? Yeah, so I think it's great. The one thing I'm really excited about this panel, and I think the great thing that has been the strength of the immigration debate, is when you get people on the panel that don't absolutely agree on totally everything, that's how you actually have dialogue and move real forward. And so I don't actually think it's important that everybody agree on every absolute thing about this. And jobs, I think, is a really, really good example. I think if the immigration debate, and I'm speaking from a policy perspective because I don't do politics, I just do policy, what actually solves problems. If the notion is somehow the immigration debate is the key to unlocking the human capital potential of Americans, I don't think that's exactly right. I mean, I would look at things, and which we've written a lot about before, is if you take the chains that government has imposed on the economy that limit the opportunity for economic growth and economic freedom, if you focus on education reforms that give people the skills they need to be successful rather than just throw money at it, if you have welfare programs that encourage people to get into the workplace and work rather than make them dependent, and if you encourage families that create the environment that create people that want to be productive future citizens, those are equally, if not more important things to really, really focus on, to really have human capital. I think human capital is the most valuable thing America has, and I think the ability to draw that from around the world is actually a huge competitive advantage for us. But the one thing that we all agree on, and I think which is really, really important, is immigration is part of that, because you can never get at a system that really works if you're just pretending that you have immigration laws and you're pretending that you have border security, because then you're not actually exercising sovereignty over your own country and your ability to choose your own future.
Thank you. I saw a hand over here.
Thank you, ma'am. John Gizzi, Chief Political Correspondent with Newsmax. Following up on Jim's remarks at the beginning about other countries and their economy and dealing with it, Mexico, after 12 years, went back to the pre-party that had been in power. And some people were nervous about President Peña Nieto, and yet he appears to be moving in the direction of more market-based solutions, as well as giving people who have business degrees an opportunity to pursue private sector employment. The same could be said about the President of Guatemala, Otto Perez Molina. And my question is very simple. Do you see other countries moving in the right direction? And if so, how many years can we see it where people will not be inclined to come here?
Yeah, so we do this great thing called the Index of Economic Freedom, where we grade every country in the world on their level of economic freedom and opportunity. And I do think if we want a Western hemispheric market that actually works, and where you're not having, in a sense, distortions to the marketplace that really drive illegal immigration, at the end of the day, economic freedoms is a huge part of that. I do think, for example, that talking about all the countries in Central America, which we've seen spikes from, in the same thing is not fair or correct. I mean, there are different problems stemming for different reasons. Mexico, I think you're right, has actually done better. The problem I have with Mexico today has really been this pass-through. I mean, in a sense, Mexico has facilitated this latest round of migration from the Central American countries to the United States, and I think that is, I think that's wrong. And we've seen that problem before. We had a big influx of unlawful migration from Brazil a few years back. Basically, what people were doing is they were going to Mexico and getting visas because it was easier to get a visa to Mexico, and then they were just coming into the United States. And then we went to the Mexicans and we said, look, this is like, you have to deal with this. And they kind of cracked down on Brazilian visas to Mexico, and it worked out well. I think we need a similar relationship with now Mexico. So it's not just the Mexican economy that I think is important to normalizing the markets, but also I think they have to have a responsible foreign policy in their dealings with these Latin American countries.
Over here.
Thank you. Leandra Bernstein, RIA Novosti. There's been a lot of discussion about the rule of law here, and it's pretty much been identified that the United States isn't exactly following our own immigration laws. But when it comes to international requirements to honor refugee statuses, or refugee status, I've spoken to a lot of people on, I'd say, the other side of the immigration debate who see the U.S. turning away, especially the young immigrants from Central America, as a violation of our responsibility to honor incoming refugees, which is also connected to the U.S. commitment to fighting the drug war in Central America, Latin America. So what is our responsibility to international law as far as refugee status with these immigrants?
I think international law places a more restrictive burden on the United States and on other countries than we think it does. The definition of a refugee is someone who's got a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, social group, or political opinion. That's it. So if you're fleeing generalized poverty, if you're fleeing generalized violence, if you're even fleeing civil war, you don't actually fit the definition of refugee. That's just a fact under the international law. In reality, the vast majority of people coming through should be turned around, and the United States has laws on its books providing for expedited removal at the border, where we make a quick determination. Do you even have a credible theory under which you're a refugee on account of race, religion, nationality, social group, or political opinion? And if not, we can turn you around at the border. Now, the president's saying, well, but I've got this 2008 unaccompanied minors being trafficked law that ties my hands. I can't use expedited removal at the border. And as I've said, and as CIS.org has said, there are good reasons why we shouldn't be applying that law. We're using that law as an excuse. But I think our actual international obligations are being respected under current law. And indeed, one could argue the United States has consistently gone beyond our international obligations. We've gone outside to bring in overseas refugees from refugee camps around the world to whom, under international law, we have no obligation. And yet we regularly bring refugees to the United States because they're in need of refuge, and we want to do our fair share in the United States. So I think we have a record of dealing with refugees in the United States which exceeds our international obligations, and is one of which, frankly, we can all be proud.
Gentleman right in the very back row, go ahead.
Thank you. Joel Mandelman, I'm an attorney. I have one question for Professor Ting and one for Ms. Conway. Could Congress legislatively, consistent with the President's Article 2 power to grant amnesties, outlaw all of his amnesties, legislatively undo the deferred prosecution policy and so forth, or is Congress, because of separation of powers, barred from doing that? And for Ms. Conway, you've got all this polling data that shows that taking a much tougher line on immigration reform is politically popular. Why is it so difficult to get the leadership of the Republican Party to pay attention to these numbers, or are they just so emotionally or financially tied to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that no matter what data you showed them, they just won't budge?
I'll take the second first. Well, the leadership in the waning days of Congress, they passed this bill, and we tested it. It supported 58, 32 opposed, just the tenets of it, TENETS, without explaining, who was behind it. I don't think blaming the chamber is advisable so much as something Rich Lowry said earlier. I think there's this huge misperception that and frankly, it's a cynical, if not elitist one, held by many, that if the way to win Hispanic voters is through immigration, and I think it's incredibly cynical because it treats Hispanics, first of all, in this country as a monolith. It's really the way the left believes all women care about is everything from the waist down. So let's just talk to them about abortion, which now they call, quote, women's health. And soon they'll just call it women's issues or women, or we'll just touch our temple and know what they mean. But so on immigration, it's similarly cynical, and it also is just completely disproven. Hispanics are like every other cohort in America in public opinion polls. They care an awful lot about many issues. Immigration is one of them. And I believe Phyllis Schlafly put out a masterful report earlier this year where she dissects, and everybody I'm sure can access it, Phyllis Schlafly, Eagle Forum, she dissects how untrue that just is. And I think it's got an awful lot to do with electoral politics, but let me say in no uncertain terms, whether I'm speaking on behalf of public opinion or myself, I don't think any politician should ever act on immigration being craven for votes on one way or the other. You have to do what's right, and you have to do what's right for everybody concerned. Fairness is a core governing value in this country. And so far, the debate, especially now with the border crisis currently, is always about what's fair to the immigrants. But Americans are saying what also is fair to the workers, to the blue-collar workers, to the college students who are told, we'll just help you forgive your loans or pay them later or increase the minimum wage. What's fair to everyone? Is business being fair to everyone? Are policies being fair to everyone? So anybody who is doing anything on immigration with votes in their eyes really should take a look in the mirror and find another line of work, or actually compete for jobs.
And on the question of what Congress can do anything they want to do and are able to do. I mean, the reality is, in order to enact legislation under our Constitution, you usually have to get the president on board, or you have to override a presidential veto, and in the current situation, that's very difficult to do. We should not lose sight of the fact, however, that Congress has enacted laws already. We have very complicated immigration laws in place that were enacted by both houses of Congress and signed into law by the President of the United States. And those laws set up a very complicated formula which decides who can come into the United States as a legal immigrant and who can't. And by the way, we have the most generous legal immigration system in the world, bar none. We give out more green cards for legal permanent residents with a clear path to full citizenship every year than all the rest of the nations of the world combined. So let's not lose sight of that. Congress has spoken on this question. They've enacted the laws. It's up to the president to fulfill his constitutional obligation to faithfully execute the laws properly enacted under our Constitution by Congress.
And just let me associate myself with that sentiment, because the problem is, right, if you already have laws in the books that the President of the United States is ignoring, what good is passing a new law saying he should honor the laws that are on the books going to do? And, you know, the administration's defense is that just this is an exercise of prosecutorial discretion, and there is some wiggle room like that's traditionally been used, but it's been just for minuscule cases. You know, Chinese students subject to deportation at the time of the Tiananmen Square crackdown, or that you delay their deportation, but nothing that is this sweeping. And prosecutorial discretion typically involves you don't have enough resources to prosecute everyone, so a few people you let go because you don't have the energy and the time and the resources. This is entirely different. This is taking energy and resources and personnel from enforcing the laws and using them to administer an entirely new dispensation under the laws. Because whatever this new DACA is, if it works like the old DACA, people will have to apply, the applications will have to be reviewed, they'll have to get ID cards, so there'll be a whole new administrative apparatus devoted to this, created out of nothing in defiance of the laws that are already on the books.
And we're going to have to leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me thanking our panelists, Kellyanne, Professor Ting, James Carafano.